Hi, my name's John and this is my partner Michelle. And this is our 7-year-old 70,000 mile Tesla Model S.
Come with us as we travel through 9 countries from the south coast of the UK to the top of Norway. A journey of over 5,000 miles in a car that the tabloid press would have you believe has little to no battery performance left.
And let's see whether the Tesla charging network is up to the job of getting us all the way there and all the way back. Because if it is, Elon's paying for all the fuel. Welcome to the long free ride.
Welcome back to the long free ride. Leg 4 of our journey sees us driving from Copenhagen to Stockholm as we continue our challenge to reach the North Cape of Norway. Today's leg is planned to be over 400 miles, which should take us about 8 hours behind the wheel, and we're planning to stop 3 times to charge the Tesla. I'd really been looking forward to this leg of the journey as I'd made the same crossing but by rail in my late teens whilst exploring Europe with a friend over the New Year period. I remembered snowy landscapes and clear blue skies from the train window. And although we still had the blue skies this time round, my misty-eyed memories did not match the reality of today's concrete tunnel and multi-lane highway. Oh well. We start off by going in the Drogden Tunnel, which is a distance of 2.5 miles, and then across the Åsund Bridge, which is just over 5 miles. This is the single longest combined road and rail bridge in Europe and takes us from Denmark across an artificial island in the middle and then into Sweden. Sweden, of course, is our 7th country on this road trip, and my challenge of the day is to get John to listen to ABBA tracks and count how many IKEAs we pass en route.
Well, if those are the only 2 things I need to worry about today, that's not a problem. I've spent many years not listening to ABBA tracks, and really I don't care how many IKEAs we go past as long as we don't stop. However, what was becoming a problem is our road trip diet. Because you're really only stopping at gas stations and roadside restaurants, you're really eating quite poorly. Lots of cakes and sausage buns and all that sort of stuff. It's washed down with copious amounts of coffee. And that turned out to be the case today as well. I even forgot to film at the first charging stop because I was spending too much time stuffing my face with chocolate muffin or something. But we did get some footage of the second one, which was the largest one we'd seen so far, with 40 chargers, and it was nice to watch the cars coming and going as we sat there and ate ourselves into oblivion with McDonald's. From there we drove past a very large inland lake, which was quite nice to see, and eventually got to our 3rd charging spot for the day. There we picked up enough charge to get us to Stockholm, but also to have enough in the car so that when we set sail a couple of days later, we would only need to pick up a charge on the outskirts of Stockholm. Interestingly, this was the first charger we'd been to where there were more non-Tesla EVs charging than there were Teslas themselves, presumably showing that if you build it, they will come.
Soon we were approaching the outskirts of Stockholm and the road started to get more congested, and between the lady on the sat-nav, myself looking at the map, we managed to direct John on the wrong exit. I'm sure he's forgiven me by now.
Now take exit 161 on the right.
Fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah. This was the 161
no, it wasn't.
Okay.
It was the next one. Okay.
We were eager to explore Stockholm and set off via the metro to the centre of town. That dropped us actually very close to the water, and from there we happened upon an electric tour boat company. So this gave us a guided tour lasting about 50 minutes to an hour. It cost £20 per head, but it did give us an overview of the famous Stockholm sites. So we saw narrow bridges, the spot where the Vasa ship sank, the corresponding museum, of course, and the Gröna Lund Tivoli.
I also really want to recommend the restaurant that they're at. It's a really nice place. I've heard it has the best shrimp sandwich in the entire city. And if you want to go around the water on your own time, we have kayaks and paddle boats that you can rent over there. Yeah, and this bridge we're going under right now is called Djurgårdsbron. It has 4 cool statues on top of it, so they're supposed to represent the Norse gods. And this one right here, Thor. If we're a very secular country, we celebrate all of the Christian holidays, because we're still formally Christian. So, you know, Christmas, Easter, all of those. And, you know, there are positives and negatives for all of the holidays. One negative might be the horrible smelling fish that we eat to all of our holidays, especially on Christmas. You might have heard of it, herring. It smells really awful. I don't know why my relatives love it. It means that the land over on the island is really crooked. If you squint, you can see that some of the houses are leaning one way or the other, because the roads are also really crooked. Mostly cobblestone roads. And they're not really adapted to modern day life, or cars, really. We have one street that is 90 centimeters wide. But it's a tiny island. You can walk across it in 10-15 minutes, so you don't really need to take the car.
Back on terra firma, we continued our walk along the quayside. It wasn't long till we saw a fantastic tall ship flying what must have been one of the largest Stars and Stripes flags I've ever seen. It looked absolutely brilliant in the sunshine. The ship was called the Eagle, and it was part of the US Coast Guard. It's a training vessel of theirs, and was on sort of a tour of European ports for the summer. Time was getting on, and we're also getting a bit peckish, and so we headed into the Misbehave bar and had a nice lunch there and a bit of a rest.
After lunch, we found our way to Gamlastan, which means Stockholm Old Town. And it is from the medieval period, so 1252. It has lots of winding cobblestone streets, ancient churches, medieval squares, and even the royal palace. The royal palace was built in the 18th century and has a typically Baroque style. It is the official residence of the Swedish royal family. It's the area where it has the largest square, so you can see some period buildings which are really colourful there. You might have seen those on a postcard. But also a street that's only 35 inches wide. You definitely won't get this Tesla down that.
The following day we took the metro into town again and walked up to a popular viewing spot. However, somebody had left a blinking cruise liner in the way. I waved and shouted, but they wouldn't move it. After doing some filming at the viewpoint, we headed back in towards town. Lucky it was downhill because it was a hot day and it was a fairly long walk. We passed an area called Slussen. They're building a big bridge here that they're calling a golden bridge, but from what the locals were saying, it's over budget, overdue, and nobody seems to really want it. We crossed the harbour by ferry to an island that has a massive fun fair on it. But the island itself is really the fiefdom of the king still. He decides what can go on the island, what can be built there, etc, etc. Land on the island now is primarily used for gardens, museums, all that sort of thing. And here you'll find the world famous ABBA Museum. Speaking of which, we did have a rather nice lunch there. I would love to play you the music that was being broadcast, but sadly that would probably be a copyright infringement and would get our channel demonetized. Before any of you on the internet start to get upset, I did let Michelle go to the ABBA Museum to use the toilet.
Although I was disappointed by not being able to go into the ABBA Museum, the walk through the park and an ice cream did see me perk up. We saw our friendly little electric tour boats again and walked back into town past their gorgeous theatre before having a drink at a bar in the park area and heading back to the apartment.
We've reached our final night here in Stockholm and had a great time. So we thought we'd do a little wrap up of what we thought of the city and how we've enjoyed it being our first time here. So what do you think?
Yeah, I'd say it feels comparable to London in terms of size. I knew very little about Stockholm other than there was a lot of bridges and it was made up of about 14 islands.
But the islands, when they come out of the water, are quite rocky and craggy. You know, we're beginning to get into the real Scandinavian scenery. So we're beginning to see some of those rocky outcrops and all that sort of beautiful stuff that we will hope to bring to you in the future episodes. But this is when we walked up to one of the tube stations or metro stations, we were pretty puffed by the time we got up there. And in fact, we chose the other one to go to this morning because we just thought it may well not be quite so much of a climb, and indeed it wasn't. Getting around the city is a real breeze and it's really quite cheap. One of the things you need to do when you get here is get the app on your phone for the public transport system.
It's called SL.
It's called SL, yeah. And that will cover you for the buses, the trams, the metro, the ferries, pretty much everything. And, you know, the usual sort of thing, you can buy like a day ticket and jump on, jump off of different modes of transport. But the great thing is you will, if you're going to really explore the city, you will end up using at least two of them, probably the metro and the ferries, because they are just the staples of how the population moves around the city.
Yeah, I mean, they're even called commuter ferries.
Yeah.
To get you from one island to another, basically. And I think also that's one of my points around trusting your technology and using your mobile. They do it for everything seemingly here. So the transport system, the whole security,
door locks on in the apartment.
We've got to get through 3 different doors with this app on the phone to be able to get to the room. So, I mean, I felt safe. I know I compared it to London earlier, but that was sort of in size and scale and history, I think, and the fact it's a monarch-led country as well. But we felt perfectly safe here, even wandering around with a tripod. So nothing says tourist like a tripod.
Yeah. Once again, we've been really lucky to have fantastic weather. Even the Swedes are amazed with the weather at the moment. It is so warm.
So it means we've taken full advantage of the sort of central city parks and going on the ferries rather than hiding in museums.
Yeah, and there are a lot of museums and really good museums as well. There's a museum for everything, including the Nobel Prize Museum.
Yeah.
So you can, find about all the different people who won it over the years, including people that invented gunpowder and things like that. So if you were to get here and the weather wasn't going to be great, there are plenty of things to still do.
Yeah, and on that point, actually, I just want to shout out to whoever makes these. And I'm going to say the name horribly wrong, probably, but Chocolade Biscuit, which are delicious. So it looks like a Jaffa cake on steroids. It's got a biscuity base, which is sort of coconutty.
I don't remember any of this being scripted.
No, it wasn't. And it was soft and chewy on the bottom. And then it's got a chocolate ganache in it, which is silky smooth. And it's encased with chocolate around it. So my new favourite Swedish thing.
Okay, moving on from that, we're heading off up country now And as we head away
Can I
from
eat
the,
this now?
You can eat if you want.
Good.
As we head away from the main cities, we really start to get into areas where the charging network is not going to be as comprehensive as it has been so far. So we have to start to plan a bit more, and we have to hope that things go our way, because some of the charging stations are literally seem to be about as far as the car will go between one station and the other. So if you want to stay with us and find out how we get on with that, then just subscribe, like, do all those sort of things, and you'll find that out. See you later. While Michelle finishes stuffing her face, let's have a look at the stats for this episode. Driving from Copenhagen to Stockholm was 428 miles, which is 688 kilometres. And to do that, we consumed 116 kilowatts of electricity.
I really loved that Swedish chocolate treat, and I wish I had bought many, many more of them. However, we charged 3 times on this leg of the journey and were stationary for 1 hour 30 minutes.
Because we were able to use the Tesla charging network, we didn't get charged. Again, if you don't understand why we don't get charged, take a look at the video linked in the comments below. And fortunately, there were no more things that went wrong with the car, so we didn't have any other costs. So let's add the stats from this episode across to the trip stats.
We hope the long free ride is demonstrating that you can do long road trips in an electric vehicle and giving some hints of what the future of motoring looks like. Please like, share and subscribe to the channel to help us bring this message to a wider audience. What do you think the future of mobility looks like? Let us know in the comments.
Out here it's about 25 degrees Celsius. In there, behind those doors, it's -5 or below all year.